Hi everyone. Today I wanted to share a little part of my story. So a little bit of backstory. I am Korean adopted. I did a birth family search in 2014 and I found my birth family in 2014 and actually returned to Korea in that same year. And I guess as an adoptee, you always wonder a little bit like what might have been. What would your life have looked like if you were never adopted? And I got the opportunity to firsthand get a glimpse at that and get a real sense of what it would have been. And I wanted to share that. So I wanted to compare with you what my birth life would have looked like compared to my actual life. So my life being an adoptee. 3 parts. So one kind of more material, like housing, vehicles. Secondly, like relationships and the structure of the family and how that would have been different for me. And third would be opportunity and access, I guess. So, like I said, I'm Korean adopted. I was adopted to the United States and raised here, and that's where I currently live. So, as far as like housing, that was really the biggest thing that really was so apparent when we went. I grew up in a middle-class family for sure, and grew up in a very large home with ample space, both indoors and outdoors. My family had a lot of land, or has a lot of land as well, so we were always able to spread out and just had a lot of space. And so the housing difference there is so huge. I actually went to my birth parents' home, so the home that I would have grown up in, and it was probably the size. It's probably a couple hundred square feet, like total, and that's including everything. It was one main room, and it had a small bathroom and a small kitchenette, like attached to that main room, and that was it. So that was really shocking, and I know that culturally it's different too. So in the States, I feel like the housing is just way more than anybody needs, right? So there's that too. But I think that also my Korean family, their housing was probably a little bit smaller than the average, I would guess, because I can't imagine it being much smaller than that. And keep in mind, there were 5 people there. I have a birth mother, a birth father, and 3 biological sisters. And all 5 of them lived there. They ate there, they slept there, they did whatever activities they did there. So that was all the space they had growing up. And I also was able to see my birth sisters' homes. So I have 3 birth sisters. I saw actually all of their homes during our trip to Korea. And obviously they were a little more modernized in everything, like in their decor and like the layout. Like the youngest of the birth sisters, she had an apartment that was like a 2-bedroom apartment, so it had a lot more, I guess, kind of westernized. I don't know, more what we would expect from an apartment. So 2 separate bedrooms. They had a bathroom, a fairly good sized kitchen, and a living space that was designated just a living space. Whereas the birth parents, they had cabinets that they took out their bedding and they put it on the floor and slept, and in the morning they would pack it all up and put it back into the cabinet. So that was really different, even among my Korean family. So my birth parents, very traditional. They slept on their floor, on mats, and my birth sisters mostly had mattresses and had beds, and more Western, I guess, culture in that way. So housing-wise, yeah, I mean, even as far as material goods, I don't think my birth parents had a car. Granted, they lived in a more urban environment, so hopefully they were able to get around with public transport, or I guess my birth sisters would probably help them a lot in that regard. But even vehicles, like when I turned 16, I got a car, and my siblings, when they turned 16, they got cars, and we were very fortunate in that sense. And you probably saw the thumbnail of this video. So the house that's a picture of is actually my first home, like my husband and I, my first home that we purchased back in when we were 23, I believe. We were just after college, and it was a beautiful home. We loved it. It's the reason I chose that is we don't currently reside there. That was our first home. We don't live there, and I didn't want to put a picture of my childhood home, and I didn't want to put a picture of our current home because we live here now. But I want to give you just for a reference. My childhood home is probably about double that size, so plenty of space. I can't even imagine living 5 people, and I would have been the 6th. So I can't imagine living in those types of quarters. But and I know a lot of cultures do it, and it's just obviously not what I'm used to. The other comparison too would be family structure. So, like I said, I have 3 biological sisters in Korea. I have a birth mother and a birth father in Korea. And here in the States, I have my mom and dad and my siblings here. So I have 2 older brothers and one younger sister, all of whom are Korean adopted. My parents are Caucasian. And so I guess family structure-wise, it would have been very similar. So we had 3 siblings on both sides, right? So 3 adopted siblings, 3 biological siblings, and both sets of parents are still married, still together. So that would have been pretty similar. I guess the biggest difference there potentially would have been, obviously we don't know, but I think that there was the potential for having very close relationships. So of what I've seen from the 3 biological sisters is that they are very close relationship-wise and proximity. Like 2 of them live in the same city, the other one lives a couple hours away. So that's different even here. Like I have my 3 siblings and we're not very close, honestly. I'm closest with the eldest brother, and he and I both have a child the same age. Growing up, we probably had the most in common. So he's the oldest boy, and I'm the oldest girl, and there's another boy, another girl, right? So my brother and my other brother and my sister have different circumstances that make it difficult to become close with. I'm not as close with them as I am with my oldest brother. Yeah, with my biological sisters, there's definitely a relationship there now, I guess. Like we do keep in contact as much as we can, and but it's hard. Like that's not the same. We can't really communicate super easily. There's a definite language barrier there, and they're like a world apart. So we've only seen each other twice in real life. I mean, the trip that we went to Korea, and also they visited us in the States once. I think family structure-wise, that was some lost potential, because who doesn't want to have siblings that are like their best friends? And that seems like kind of like that's what they have, and I can't really be a part of that in the same way. So that's that's a difference for sure. So family structure-wise, from what my birth sisters have told me, I don't think it was a super happy upbringing or a super happy childhood. It sounds like, and this is all through translation, so it's hard to really get the really nitty-gritty details, but it sounds like there may have been some substance abuse issues going on with my birth father, and some possible abuse and stuff. So yeah, on that front, that would have been completely different. I grew up in a very loving home, and yeah, none of that was ever an issue as far as drugs or alcohol or any kind of any issues like that with my parents. At least some of that is financial. I'm very blessed that I've never been in a position of financial struggle. But I can't imagine what kind of strain that puts on a family, and what that puts, how stressful that must be for a couple to navigate. And then you have 3 mouths to feed, and then you find out you're pregnant with another one, and that would be me. They obviously could not afford another mouth to feed. So, and that was really pretty evident by their living conditions. So, and it's not to say, it wasn't that it was dirty or anything like that. Everything was very clean, and it was very tidy. It was just very, very small. So they didn't have a lot, but what they did have, it seemed that they took care of. And took pride in their home. So I didn't want to make it seem like it was like in bad conditions in that way. From a family structure, that would have been different if I had an abusive father or mother or something like that. So I didn't have that. And the last category I wanted to kind of talk about was like opportunities. So obviously the lower the income, the less opportunities that might be available to someone. So yeah, I mean, growing up, I did a lot of activities and a lot of extracurriculars and a lot of fun things, and and we traveled, and there was just a lot of stuff, right? And there were 4 of us. Like growing up, my parents adopted 4 kids. So like I did figure skating. I was a competitive figure skater for about 10 years. And anyone who knows figure skating, it's like, it's not really something you can just practice in your backyard. You need coaches and choreographers, and you need to pay for ice time and rink fees, and usually you need to be part of a club and travel to competitions, which means hotels and food and gas and flight or whatever. And that's a lot of commitment. That's a lot of dedication on both, the kids' part, as well, definitely the parents and the family's part. So I was very blessed. I was able to do certain sports and activities, and I played instruments, and my siblings all had their own activities, and that's a lot of dedication on the parents' part to commit to all those things for your kids. They were able to coordinate the time, and they had the financial resources to support them. The financial strain, I can't imagine that there was a lot of time or energy or financial resources available for my biological sisters to have those same opportunities. Same thing with schooling. Only the youngest of the 3 went to got any kind of degree. And I don't know, and again, I don't know, maybe the other 2 were not interested. But I grew up in a household that academics was very much encouraged and supported. And if you wanted to go that route, you were going to be supported in that way. And not all of my siblings chose that, but it was certainly available. And I have a doctorate level degree. I chose to go the academic route, and that was a personal choice, yes. But I also had a lot of support along the way to make that happen. So I feel very blessed in that regard. Looking back on this whole journey, and really, honestly, I really didn't process much of this until very recently. And, we searched, we found, we actually had a trip planned to Korea in 2014, and I had put in the search after we had booked the trip, and just thinking on a whim, like, let's just put this in, and they were actually found pretty quickly. So it all happened really quickly. We went out and we met them, and we experienced that. They even visited us in the States, and I didn't really process it, I don't even say fully. I don't think I fully have even. But yeah, I've been thinking about it more, and especially now having my babies. I think I mentioned this before. I have 2 children of my own, and I think it's forced me to really think about all this stuff a little bit more and figure out what it means and what it means to me, and yeah, comparatively, to have seen the alternative life that I would have lived was pretty shocking. And for my husband as well, he and I both went to Korea, and we were just shocked, by the difference in lives. I mean, also part of it's cultural too. We're both American, and my birth mother made us a beautiful meal in their home in this little teeny tiny kitchenette, barely any space for anything. And it was this huge spread of food, and I'm sure it was a celebratory meal. I don't think that they have probably those same foods all the time. But it was, it was wonderful. It was such a blessing to be able to experience that. Being an adoptee and having some of these questions and curiosities satisfied is, I feel really blessed to have some of this insight, and it's really humbling, and it's really, all these types of experiences will always put things into perspective for you. So like this video if you liked it. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. I have a lot of ideas and conversation starters I wanted to talk about. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.